Assalamu alaikum. Ustaz Sadiq, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's a bit of a back-end issue for some reason.
Let's begin, inshallah.
All right. I can start reading. Ustaz, do you mind zooming in a little? Verse number 77.
Oh, wait, this is my screen. One second.
Is it?
Yeah. Can you see
So
this?
are you sharing? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing. I just figured it out.
Okay, inshallah.
Okay.
All right, then we'll start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Pharaoh's doom. And we surely inspired Moses, saying, "Leave with my servants at night and strike a dry passage for them across the sea. Have no fear of being overtaken, nor be concerned of drowning." Then Pharaoh pursued them with his soldiers. But how overwhelming were the waters that submerged them. And so Pharaoh led his people astray and did not guide them rightly. Allah's favors to Israelites. O children of Israel, we saved you from your enemy and made an appointment with you on the right side of the Mount Tur and sent down to you manna and quail, saying, "Eat from the good things we have provided for you, but do not transgress in them, or my wrath will befall you. And whoever my wrath befalls is certainly doomed. But I am truly most forgiving to whoever repents, believes and does good, then persists on true guidance."
He repents, believes, does good deeds, and then he's guided again. This second guidance is uh, it's almost like a separate level. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide us that hidayah.
Amen, inshallah. Allah asked, "Why have you come with such a haste of your people, O Moses?" He replied, "They are close on my tracks, and I have hastened to you, my Lord, so you will be pleased." Allah responded, "We have indeed tested your people in your absence, and the Samiri has led them astray." So Moses returned to his people furious and sorrowful. He said, "O my people, had your Lord not made you a good promise? Has my absence been too long for you? Or have you wished for wrath from your Lord to befall you, so you broke your promise to me?" The calf worshippers. They argued, "We did not break our promise to you of our own free will, but we were made to carry the burden of the people's golden jewelry. Then we threw it into the fire, and so did the Samiri. Then he molded for them an idol of a calf that made a lowing sound. They said, 'This is your God and the God of Moses,' but Moses forgot where it was. Did they not see that it did not respond to them, nor could it protect or benefit them?" Aaron's stance. Aaron had already warned them beforehand, "O my people, you are only being tested by this, for indeed your one true Lord is the most compassionate. So follow me and obey my orders." They replied, "We will not cease to worship it until Moses returns to us." Moses scolded his brother, "O Aaron, what prevented you when you saw them going astray from following after me? How could you disobey my orders?" Aaron pleaded, "O son of my mother, do not seize me by my beard or the hair of my head. I really feared that you would say, 'You have caused division among the children of Israel and did not observe my word.'"
Yeah, here he gives the example. فرقت بين إسرائيل ولم ترقب قولي. In another place, he gives the reason of they were. We read it recently. They almost were about to kill me. He says, "Yabna umma," oh, the son of my mother. But it's a very unique way, and it's even written as one word in the Quran, as we can see. It really shows the closeness between them two.
The Samari's punishment. If you could scroll down if there's something. Moses then asked, what did you think you were doing, O Samiri? He said, I saw what they did not see. So I took a handful of dust from the hoof prints of the horse of the messenger angel Gabriel, then cast it into the molded calf. This is what my lower self tempted me into. Moses said, Go away then, and for the rest of your life you will surely be crying, Do not touch me. Then you will certainly have a fate that you you cannot escape. Now look at your God to which you have been devoted. We will burn it up, then scatter it in the sea completely. Then Moses addressed his people, your only God is Allah. There is no God worthy of worship except Him. He encompasses everything in His knowledge. Deniers of the Quran. This is how we relate to you, O Prophet, some of the stories of the past, and we have certainly granted you a reminder from us. Whoever turns away from it will surely bear the burden of sin on the day of judgment, suffering its consequences forever. What an evil burden they will carry on Judgment Day. Beware of the day the trumpet will be blown, and we will gather the wicked on that day blue-faced from horror and thirst. They will whisper among themselves, You stayed no more than 10 days on the earth. We know best what they will say. The most reasonable of them will say, You stayed no more than a day. Mountains on Judgment Day. And if they ask you, O Prophet, about the mountains, then say, My Lord will wipe them out completely, leaving the earth level and bare, with neither depressions nor elevations to be seen. People on Judgment Day. On that day, all will follow the caller for assembly, and none will dare to deviate. All voices will be hushed before the most compassionate. Only whispers will be heard. On that day, no intercession will be of any benefit except by those granted permission by the most compassionate and whose words are agreeable to him. He fully knows what is ahead of them and what is behind them, but they cannot encompass him in their knowledge. And all faces will be humbled before the ever living, all sustaining. And those burdened with wrongdoing will be in loss. But whoever does good and is a believer will have no fear of being wronged or denied their reward. The Quran. And so we have sent it down as an Arabic Quran and varied the warnings in it, so perhaps they will shun evil or it may cause them to be mindful. Exalted is Allah, the true King. Do not rush to recite a revelation of the Quran or a prophet before it is properly conveyed to you, and pray, My Lord, increase me in knowledge.
Here, if I'm not mistaken, the tafsirs would have mentioned that at times the Prophet ﷺ would, while it was the revelation coming, he would be trying to repeat it so he could capture it, memorize it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, وَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يُخْطَى إِلَيْكَ وَحْيُهُ. You don't have to rush that. Quran beheld says, nor hasten to repeat the Quran to retain it. So to retain it before its inspiration has been completed onto you. One other place the Quran says this, it says, لا تحرك به لسانك. I think that's in Surah Insan.
Surah Qiyamah, I think.
Surah Qiyamah, naam, Surah Qiyamah.
Ibn Abbas would make dua after reciting this verse, oh Allah, increase me in knowledge, iman, and yaqeen, certainty. So can make a similar dua, inshallah.
Okay, تفضل.
Satan versus Adam. And indeed, we once made a covenant with Adam, but he forgot, and so we did not find determination in him. And remember when we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam, so they all did, but not Iblis, who refused arrogantly. So we cautioned, O Adam, this is surely an enemy to you and to your wife. So do not let him drive you both out of paradise, for you, O Adam, would then suffer hardship. It is guaranteed that you will never go hungry or unclothed, nor will you ever suffer from thirst or the sun's heat.
Here it said Adam alayhi salam forgot, fanasiya. And we know, forgetfulness is not something you're held accountable for. Uh, so this is why sometimes scholars point to this verse saying that he wasn't fully, not responsible for the zalla, the little mistake that he may have committed.
The temptation. But Satan whispered to him, saying, O Adam, shall I show you the tree of immortality and a kingdom that does not fade away? So they both ate from the tree, and then their nakedness was exposed to them, prompting them to cover themselves with leaves from paradise. So Adam disobeyed his Lord and so lost his way. Then his Lord chose him for his grace, accepted his repentance, and guided him rightly.
122. Yet afterwards his Lord chose him, turned back to him with favor, and guided. It doesn't say he accepted his repentance, but it could be that. But he could have turned to him, and Adam alayhi salam repented. In Surah Tawbah it said, Allah turned to them, so they turned to him. Allahu Alam. So this could be just mentioning the first part of it, Allah turning to him. Usually Allah turning to a servant precedes that servant, or always that servant turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
The fall. Allah said, descend both of you from here together with Satan as enemies to each other. Then when guidance comes to you from me, whoever follows my guidance will neither go astray in this life nor suffer in the next. But whoever turns away from my reminder will certainly have a miserable life. Then we will raise them up blind on the day of judgment. They will cry, my Lord, why have you raised me up blind, although I used to see? Allah will respond, it is so, just as our revelations came to you and you neglected them, so today you are neglected. This is how we reward whoever transgresses and does not believe in the revelations of their Lord. And the punishment of the hereafter is far more severe and more lasting.
Yeah, in this verse, Allah subhanahu tells them both to go down. It says, both of you descend. But in Surah Baqarah, if I'm not mistaken, it says ihbitu, where the plural is used.
اهبطوا جميعا يا
نعم. Sheikh Yusuf's here. أهلا وسهلا.
Is it not yet clear to them how many peoples we destroyed before them, whose ruins they still pass by? Surely in this are signs for people of sound judgment. Had it not been for a prior decree from your Lord or a prophet and a term already set, their instant doom would have been inevitable. Would you mind just clicking on that 617, Ustaz Sadiq, just a footnote?
That he'll delay their judgment until the hereafter.
Advice to the Prophet. So be patient, O Prophet, with what they say, and glorify the praises of your Lord before sunrise and before sunset, and glorify him in the hours of the night and at both ends of the day, so that you may be pleased with the reward. Do not let your eyes crave what we have allowed some of the disbelievers to enjoy, the fleeting splendor of this worldly life which we test them with. but your Lord's provision in the hereafter is far better and more lasting. Bid your people to pray and be diligent in observing it. We do not ask you to provide. It is He who provides for you, and the ultimate outcome is only for the people of righteousness.
Subhanallah.
This verse was repeated in Surah Hijr, and it's very similar here. وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ لَمَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ. Nor let your eyes linger over what we have given whole classes of them to enjoy. And Mustafa Khattab translates it similar.
Yeah, I have. Thus, you shall not extend the gaze of your eyes towards the unbelievers and what we have given any number of them to enjoy. Dr. Ahmed Zaki.
So here the Azwaj minhum is not being translated as their partners or anything, right?
Not here.
Surah Kaf also has very similar verses to that as well.
And strain not thine eyes toward that which we cause some wedded pairs among them to enjoy. That's pictorial. I remember Ustaz Ibrahim and Ustaz Ahmad himself, they pointed to this the other day when we read this, that when the command has been given for prayer and tasbih in those sacred times, that when you have something like that, then there's no need to turn away to the dunya. Like the two verses, they contextually related to. Ustaz Ahmad, you quoted a saying from Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anhu, that if you have been given something like the Quran to wish the world, what was that quote, if you remember?
I think whoever takes the world instead of the Quran, whoever is given the Quran and takes the world over the Quran, takes something that is insignificant over that's significant. I think it was along those lines, right?
Yeah.
So Taman had shared that in the group. I remember him. Warning to the pagans. They demand, if only we could bring us if only he could bring us a sign from his Lord. Have they not already received a confirmation of what is in earlier scriptures? Had we destroyed them with a torment before this prophet came, they would have surely argued, our Lord, if only you had sent us a messenger, we would have followed your revelations before being humiliated and put to shame. Say to them, O Prophet, each of us is waiting, so keep waiting. You will soon know who is on the straight path and is rightly guided. Okay, Surah Al-Anbiya, the Prophet. Like the previous... Sorry?
No, I just offered to read if you wanted to. But...
Yeah. I can read maybe a few more stuff and I'll pass it on, inshallah.
Right.
Like the previous surah, this is another Meccan surah that aims at reassuring the Prophet ﷺ by reminding him of Allah's grace and support to his prophets, including Abraham, Job, Jonah, Zechariah, and Jesus. The Prophet ﷺ is said to be sent as a mercy to the whole world. Warnings of the horrors of Judgment Day are dispersed throughout the surah and are carried over to the next surah. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Indifference to the truth. The time of people's judgment has drawn near, yet they are heedlessly turning away. Whatever new reminder comes...
The last surah ended by saying, wait, and I'll be waiting. And now this surah starts with the judgment has drawn near. No.
Beautiful.
تفضل, sorry.
These surahs that were placed by Jibril alayhi salam as they were ordering the Quran, right, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The order has been,
There's some debate on that,
yeah.
but to be honest with you, I personally inclined that the order of the Quran is tawqifi, and that's
Mm,
that it comes from revelation.
mm,
But there is, you know, there's some signs that maybe a few sort of the Quran, we have evidences of, and then some we don't have evidences of. So some of the scholars they say that it was from the ijtihad of the Sahaba and the companions. But
mm,
there's some support for why it is that the other group says it's tawqifi as well, meaning that's from revelation. So that there is, you
mm,
know, that the organization of the sword, you find a deep interlocking of the meanings. That's a long discussion in and of itself.
mm.
Yeah,
All
it's
right. Thank you, Maurice. Whatever new reminder comes to them from their Lord, they only listen to it jokingly, with their hearts totally distracted. The evildoers would converse secretly, saying, "Is this one not human like yourselves? Would you fall for this witchcraft, even though you can clearly see?" The Prophet responded, "My Lord fully knows every word spoken in the heavens and the earth, for He is the all hearing, all knowing. Yet they say, this Quran is a set of confused dreams.
mm,
No, he has fabricated it. No, he must be a poet. So let them bring us a tangible sign like those prophets sent before. Not a single society we destroyed before them ever believed after receiving the signs. Will these pagans then believe?" Hmm.
The dream interpreters of the time of Yusuf alayhi salam, when they couldn't understand his dream, which was the king's dream, they said something similar. Adghathu ahlam, hasha. You know, uh, ill-assorted bundles of senseless dreams is how Quran Behel translated it. But obviously, it was a real dream, and Yusuf alayhi salam interpreted very well. They've used the same phrase here. But it's interesting. They're saying, why wasn't he sent with a sign like those of the previous messengers? And then the Quran says the previous message, the group people also didn't believe when seeing the signs. Are these guys going to believe?
Yeah, and it leaves no exception, every single society. So
Yeah.
we did not send messengers before you, O Prophet, except me, men inspired by us. If you polytheists do not know this already, then ask those who have knowledge of the scriptures. We did not give those messengers supernatural bodies that did not need food, nor were they immortal. Then we fulfilled our promise to them, saving them along with whoever we willed and destroying the transgressors. Our kids are growing to superheroes with all these superpowers. My son, he knows all these. He's 4 years old. Yeah, there's a bit of a contrast there between a prophet, alayhi salam, the Prophet salam is sent with, is a human being, not a superhero.
mm.
Yeah. Reasoning with Meccan pagans, we have surely revealed to you a book in which there is glory for you. Will you not then understand? Imagine how many societies of wrongdoers we have destroyed, raising up other people after them. When the
Here
wrongdoer,
it says, sorry to cut you while you read. Rarely we have sent down you all down a mighty book in which is your renown and admonition. كتابا فيه ذكركم. So in it is your mention, but it's also an admonition and also a renown. It's got, I guess, it's got all those connotations.
That's verse number 10, right, Ustaz Sadiq?
No, verse number 10.
Yeah, okay. Imagine how many societies of wrongdoers we have destroyed, raising up other people after them. When the wrongdoers sensed the arrival of our torment, they started to run away from their cities. They were told, "Do not run away, return to your luxuries and your homes, so you may be questioned about your fate." They cried, you could scroll down. They cried, "Woe to us, we have surely been wrongdoers." They kept repeating their cry until we mowed them down, leaving them lifeless.
So if you notice now, the Quran shifts from itself to talking about the universe. So like for 15 ayat, is one way or another is talking about what is the Quran, the ayat of revelation, and now we're shifting into talk about the ayat of the creation. So I've never seen that before, but it seems to be very
Oh,
interesting
you mean
as
what's
an
to
intro
follow from verse 16 onwards?
from 1 to 16. From 1 to 16 is contextualizing the reality of the Quran, and then now it begins to from 16 onward. I don't know how far it goes, but it's
Yeah.
beginning to draw our attention to the creation. So then the sort of combining both of those realities, the two readings, so to speak, reading of Revelation and the reading of the Quran as proofs of the truths of of belief in the reality of life and so on and so forth.
We did not create the heavens and the earth and everything in between for sport. Had we intended to take some amusement, we could have found it in our presence if that had been our will. In fact, we hurl the truth against falsehood, leaving it crushed, and it quickly vanishes, and woe be to you for what you claim. To him belong all those in the heavens and the earth, and those nearest to him are not too proud to worship him, nor do they tire. They glorify him day and night, never wavering. I was reading a hadith the other day, and this was in the time when they didn't have much riches yet coming in, the Sahaba. And they say to Prophet, if we had more wealth, we didn't have to worry about our livelihood and we could worship more.
La ilaha illallah.
But the Prophet says, no, I don't think that would be the case. Yeah. False gods. Or have they taken gods from the earth who can raise the dead? Had there been other gods besides Allah in the heavens or the earth, both realms would have surely been corrupted. So glorified is Allah, Lord of the throne, far above what they claim. He cannot be questioned about what he does, but they will all be questioned. Or have they taken other gods besides him? Say, O Prophet, show me your proof. Here is the Quran, the reminder for those with me, along with earlier scriptures, the reminder for those before me. But most of them do not know the truth, so they turn away. We never sent a messenger before you, a prophet, without revealing to him, there is no God worthy of worship except me, so worship me alone.
Sheikh Yusuf connected the universe and the Quran, the two books. Here it says, where is it? No, I can't find it in the translation, but in the Arabic, had there been a God other than
Yeah,
another
it's the
God?
26th one.
Yeah, had there been other gods besides Allah in the heavens and the earth, both realms would have been corrupted. This is being used for the universe, but like Sheikh Yusuf pointed out, There's also a verse that says, if this Quran was from anyone other than Allah, they would have found plenty of ikhtilaf in it, right? لَوَجَدُوا فِي اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا.
Yeah.
So both books, the universe and the Quran is pointing that it's got a single author, a single creator. No.
Yeah. Okay. A pagan claim, and they say the most compassionate has offspring. Glory be to him. In fact, those angels are only his honored servants who do not speak until he has spoken, only acting at his command. He fully knows what is ahead of them and what is behind them. They do not intercede except for whom he approves, and they tremble in awe of him. Whoever of them were to say, I am a god besides him, they would be rewarded with hell by us. This is how we reward the wrongdoers. Miracles in the universe. Do the disbelievers not realize that the heavens and the earth were once one mess, then we split them apart, and we created from water every living thing? Will they not then believe? And we have placed firm mountains upon the earth so it does not shake with them, and making it broad pathways so they may find their way. If you could scroll. And we have made the sky a well-protected canopy, still they turn away from its signs. And he is the one who created the day and the night, the sun and the moon, each traveling in an orbit.
Some have pointed, from a scientific miracle perspective, that verse 30, the heavens and the earth being one mass and then being split apart, as if that's pointing to the Big Bang. Yeah, Sheikh Mustafa Khattab says the same thing. I knew someone who went through a very difficult period, difficult mental health period, and he said this verse is what kept him connected to Islam.
Interesting.
And even the mountain serving as a way to stabilize the earth, that's also been mentioned as a miracle. And the fact that sorry.
No, I was going to say, does he have a science background, this brother? Is that...
Well, he saw the realities of it, and he said, look, I knew that verse is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even in those difficult periods he went through, he said that verse really kept me. Sometimes these arguments, we might see them as harsha, petty, but it actually can save someone's iman when it comes to a very difficult situation. And here again, the sky being a well-protected canopy. It's almost poetic, but it actually, what does it say? 33. سقفا محفوظا وجعلنا السماء سقفا, like a protected roof. And we know now that very literally that's exactly what it does. Some of the most harmful rays from the sun is protected by our atmosphere. A lot of it doesn't come down. Those of us in Australia, because of the ozone hole, we know that it can be a bit more burning, the sun, compared to others.
One thing here too that comes up very interestingly enough, because a lot of times we don't use the term ayah in its most complete sense. So here it says, وَهُمْ عَنْ آيَاتِهَا مُعْرِضُونَ. So it says that still they turn away from. I have translated pondering the wonders of its signs. And it's in the context of, and we made the heavens a vault safeguarded above the earth. Still they turn away from pondering the wonders of its signs. Here is almost like we're being held responsible for how we understand the universe. Like the universe is veiled to us, but we're responsible for that veil being lifted. through iman.
Yeah, because most of the times it describes the unbelievers as those who turn away from his signs.
Right,
Correct?
right.
Is that why?
Yes, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like here is like you see that kind of that clear relationship with the importance of us reading the universe in a way that leads us to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and is built that way. It's
Yeah.
not this is the problem that I have with some of the group, that they say, oh, if we just have a hermeneutic. They say if we just have a hermeneutic, just an interpretive tool that allows us to interpret things. No, this is not an interpretation only, because an interpretation only would be that I have an interpretation, you have an interpret. This is being said to be an objective reality that we can all access, and we're all being held accountable for it. That the universe is consisting here, in this case, the heavens is, but there's other things pointing in other places to the whole of the creation. That the whole of the creation is not just a matter of interpretation. That the truth of that reality is it's from Allah, and the intellect, as the scholars say, because we're created, is also from Allah, as well as the revelation is from Allah. So those realities are interlocking. They should all lead us to Allah. And it's like it's emphasizing that point as that being an objective truth, not a subjective interpretation. That's because a subjective interpretation can hold you down. You know what I'm saying? But you're being, in situations that you can have a meaningful story that inspires you in a time of crisis and so on and so forth, or gives you meaning for getting through life. But here, this is being pointed to as truth and objective truth that you should realize, right? That's kind of an impression that I got.
Yeah, and your connection with the verses and the book, the two books, it's speaking of it the exact same way. I never looked at it like that before.
We have not granted immortality to any human before you, O Prophet. So if you die, will they live forever? Every soul will taste death, and we test you, O humanity, with good and evil as a trial. Then to us you will all be returned.
Even death is painted as a universal truth. I think nobody from the human family denies that. Like, everybody believes in the reality of death with yaqeen. Nobody's escaping that point. That's a truth. So the Quran, along with the order of the universe, is putting death up there as well. That this is part of this whole system. You know what I'm saying? The human reality doesn't escape the sunan of Allah.
No.
إنه ملاقيكم, right? The Quran says, Imam Yusuf, it'll meet you. إن الموت الذين تفرون منه إنه ملاقيكم. The death that you're trying to escape will meet you. So when the disbelievers see you, O Prophet, they only make fun of you, saying, is this the one who speaks ill of your gods? While they disbelieve at the mention of the most compassionate. Humankind is made of haste. I will soon show you my signs, so do not ask me to hasten them. They ask the believers, when will this threat come to pass if what you say is true? If only the disbelievers knew that a time will come when they will not be able to keep the fire off their faces or backs, nor will they be helped. In fact, the hour will take them by surprise, leaving them stunned, so they will not be able to avert it, nor will it be delayed from them. Other messengers had already been ridiculed before you, O Prophet, but those who mocked them were overtaken by what they used to ridicule. Questions to the pagans. Ask them, O Prophet, who can defend you by day or by night against the most compassionate? Still they turn away from the remembrance of their Lord. Or do they have gods other than us that can protect them? They cannot even protect themselves, nor will they be aided against us. In fact, we have allowed enjoyment for these Meccans and their forefathers for such a long time that they took it for granted. Do they not see that we gradually reduce their land from its borders? Is it they who will then prevail?
Hmm.
Here it says, rather we gave these miscreants and their fathers to go on enjoying themselves until their lives seemed long to them in blind contentment. طال عليهم العمر. Some spiritual texts in Islam, they speak negatively of tul al-amal.
Mm.
Can they not
This,
see that we beset the land with those who capture it?
yeah, this translation has a whole different feel to it. Indeed, we have given the disbelievers and their forefathers much comfort and enjoyment until the lifespans of heedlessness that stretch over them grew long. Do they not see that we come with the spirit of the living faith to the land of the ungodly and diminish unbelief in it from its outskirts? It's almost like this is also from the Sunan that the unbelief can't maintain itself, that it has a period of time which is a taqdeer for it, and then part of the process of life is that it's purified out. It won't maintain itself. Huh?
Which translation is that, Sheikh Yusuf?
This is the gracious Quran by Dr. Ahmed Zeki Hamid.
Yeah,
Ahmed, Ahmed. Huh?
it was a bit different than the others.
That needs some. That actually needs some. I think that the ayah it poses a challenge to be translated.
It is. It's one of those. It's. I think this is mentioned twice. ننخسها من أطرافها. If I'm not mistaken, we read similar verse recently. Or maybe this is the one. Here it says, "Can they not see that we beset the land with those who capture it, reducing its boundaries from their once vast extent?" I think he's referring to like the different people capturing different countries,
Mm.
the boundaries of the countries. I'm guessing. I'm not sure.
I would think that concept didn't exist, but it says "afahum ghalibun." The concept of
Yeah,
countries and borders didn't exist. Ian is translated as literally. He puts it from its borders, but borders is not in the political sense.
yeah. Here I have one of the Turkish translations here, Professor Suat Yildirim. He says a few meanings for it. Number one, the Muslims' strength was getting bigger, and the unbelievers' lands was getting, they were getting more and more land of that.
But where did they get that from? Because in this is
This
then
is like this is like sharh, more like sharh.
yeah, but it doesn't match the context. Maybe that's some
The
meanings
second
that they.
meaning is like the as scholars of a land disappears, so it's like the land disappears. And then lastly, he gives a bit of a scientific term, and he says, from a scientific angle, some people have said that the rains and the floods and the winds uh, can erosion, a bit like erosion, uh, can erode the lands. And I wonder if people can even attribute the melting of the icebergs. Allah alam.
The melting of the icebergs.
Yeah.
You mean as being kind of like the
As like the land being reduced, because the Antarctica could be getting reduced due to that. I'm just saying, I wonder. Sometimes there was some discussion said, like the other day when Dr. Suhaib was here, about the bird being ta'ira hu ala unuqi, and Dr. Suhaib mentioned something about the memory, but I think that may have caused a lot of misunderstanding. The verse of the Quran never said that the memory stored in the neck or anything like that. It was just a very unique phrase that we have made everyone's bird on their necks. And what meaning can that be taken out of? I think Ustaz Suhaib was just, entertaining for certain options. Now,
Say, O Prophet, I warn you only by revelation, but the deaf cannot hear the call when they are warned. If they were touched by even a breath of your Lord's torment, they would certainly cry, woe to us, we have really been wrongdoers.
he, the famous contemporary scholar, analyzes this first part of this verse. If they were touched by a breath of your Lord's punishment, the balagha contained in this verse, he really uniquely highlights it, that every word in there shows the least amount, beginning with if, and touched, simply slightly touched. Mass is what you do when you wipe your head. And nafha means just a simple breath of the punishment, from the punishment of your Lord, min adabi, so just a certain amount, not even the whole. And the word adab itself is like the lesser form of punishment. There are greater ones like iqab and nakal, but the least one is used. And rabbika, your gracious Lord that looks after you, instead of, min al-jabbar al-qahar. So all that put together, he shows that every word in the Quran is used sometimes to point to the bigger meaning, that the least amount of punishment is so intolerable. No.
Divine justice. We will set up the scales of justice on the day of judgment, so no soul will be wronged in the least. And even if a deed is the weight of a mustard seed, we will bring it forth, and sufficient are we as a vigilant reckoner. The Torah. Indeed, we granted Moses and Aaron the standard to distinguish between right and wrong, a light and a reminder for the righteous, who are in awe of their Lord without seeing him, and are fearful of the hour. The Quran, and this Quran is a blessed reminder which we have revealed. Will you pagans then deny it? Prophet.
Now it's going to start the stories of the prophets.
Mhm.
And in this section, it's especially how a lot of these prophets were saved. The nunji word, nunaji, nunji, we save. Anja, it's used a lot. No.
So, interestingly enough, I went back and I started trying to see what it Wasit says, Sheikh Tantawi, with regard to the ayah that we were discussing, the ends of the, or translated as the borders of the earth. And what comes up is a concept which is interesting from the angle that it's about the presence of the first. One of the first examples that's given is that they not look at the nations that came before and how they were destroyed. And the other concept is like the idea of what warasatul ard. The other concept is that the believers. I don't want to enter the whole issue of Dar al Harb, Dar Islam, because that does come up here. But it seems to be like the idea that the believers are the inheritors of the earth. And those that disbelieve, their dominance over the earth, it doesn't maintain except for a short period of time. They don't have continuity. Right? There's no continuity, and that's kind of interesting.
Mm.
Does that make sense or no? I'm also translating in the process. So
Yeah,
then
so
it's interesting how all of that is like a muqaddimah. It serves as an introduction now to begin this, talking about the Anbiya. Now the Anbiya, the stories of the Anbiya are going to be brought up, right? But what was talked about is kind of this rule of how what happens, with believers and unbelievers on the earth, and they deny the ayat of Allah, both revelation and creation, and then now we're going into like this modeling of the people of belief, or the imams of belief, which are the Anbiya, which is kind of interesting. Sorry about that.
No, shukran.
Sadiq, would you like to read?
Oh, inshallah. Prophet Abraham. And indeed, we had granted Abraham sound judgment early on, for we knew him well to be worthy of it. Remember when he questioned his father and his people, "What are these statues to which you are so devoted?" They replied, "We found our forefathers worshipping them." He responded, "Indeed, you and your forefathers have been clearly astray." They asked, "Have you come to us with the truth, or is this a joke?" He replied, "In fact, your Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, who created them both, and to that I bear witness." Then he said to himself, "By Allah, I will surely plot against your idols after you have turned your backs and gone away." So he smashed them into into pieces, except the biggest of them, so they might turn to it for answers.
Here he translated the beginning of this grouping, which begins with 51. Now verily it is we alone who gave Abraham his distinctive right guidance. So rushd is translated as distinctive right guidance. For we well knew the worthiness of him. Behold.
Yeah, Mustafa Khattab says
Sound judgment.
sound judgment early on, yani before. Yeah. So they ask him, "Have you come with the truth, or are you joking with us?" Ibrahim alayhi salam doesn't answer that question.
What
Maybe maybe because he knew that they're saying it like in a mocking way. Allahu alam.
well, there's the whole context is showing that idolatry doesn't make sense. Because
No.
even the idea that he smashed them, and then they were the answers that the human being was looking for were not able to be you know acquired.
Yeah, this last bit, perhaps that they may towards it, turn it for answers. لَعَلَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ يَرْجِعُونَ.
He,
Perhaps.
the translation I have flows. Sorry to cut you off. It flows with the idea of right guidance. So it says, "Now verily it is we alone who gave Abraham his distinctive right guidance before this, for we well knew the worthiness of him." He said to his own father and his people, "What are these statues to which you are devoted?" They said, "We found our fathers worshiping them." He said, "Verily, all of you and your forefathers have been utterly lost in clear misguidance." They said, "Have you come to us with the word of truth, or are you those who are merely jesting and playing?" He said, "No, indeed, your Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the one who alone originated them, and to this I am one of those who bear witness." Thus he said to himself, "By God, I shall most shortly plot against your idols after you go away, when you have turned your backs to them." So he rendered all of them into pieces, except the biggest of them, so that they might return to it and make inquiry. Sorry for that disruption, but
No,
it's like
Shukr.
it, it's like the way that he translated it, and within this block of ayat, it's like it's a process of the discovery of truth. Part of it comes from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, in terms of inspiration, but Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is known as that person of method. He wants people to have a clear methodology. And he's not just saying just believe and that's it. The idea of coming to certainty and by yourself here, this is a process by which you're being asked to question your own, what is it that you worship.
And I think this goes perfectly in line with the mushriks of the time of the Prophet ﷺ, who were in the same boat. So it's really talking to them directly.
Yeah, and we have the example. Thank you, Ustad. We have the example that they will eat sometimes their own idols that were made from tamr.
No. They protested, who dared this? Who dared do this to our gods? It must be an evildoer. Some said, we heard a young man called Abraham speaking ill of them. They demanded, bring him before the eyes of the people so that they may witness his trial. They asked, was it you who did this to our gods, O Abraham? He replied sarcastically, no, this one, the biggest of them, did it. So ask them if they can talk. So they came back to their senses, saying to one another, you yourselves are truly the wrongdoers. Then they quickly regressed to their original mindset, arguing, you already know that those idols cannot talk. He rebuked them. Do you then worship instead of Allah what can neither benefit nor harm you in any way? Shame on you and whatever you worship instead of Allah. Do you not have any sense? They concluded, burn him up to avenge your gods, if you must act. I really like this phrase of him. Uffil lakum wali ma ta'buduna min dunillah. The Quran says don't say uff to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
But Ibrahim alayhi salam uses it, I'm just done with you and your idols. Uffil lakum wali ma ta'buduna min dunillah. 67. Fall to you and all you worship short of Allah.
And it's deep because I wasn't paying attention to that before, but Ibrahim's people, alayhi salatu wasalam, they refused to change. And he just left. And I compared that with Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam, who his people were the only people who, once the punishment came down upon them, they believed. But even the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, his people, they fought him, but they changed. And even Bani Israel, they were full of those who didn't change, but they were full of some people who changed. Bani Israel had people who changed as well. But Ibrahim's people, they refused.
Yeah, it was only him and Lut alayhi salam that left, right? Yeah. But his plan and strategy worked because that verse said they clearly, they turned to themselves and they said, "Innakum antum al-zalimun." They realized that when he said, "Ask the big one." Now, obviously, there's a lot of tafsir about this verse. Hasha, was this a lie that Ibrahim alayhi salam said? But these are not called lies in tafsir; they're called ma'arid, like argumentation in a way that appeals to it. Some have got into the details that said, قال بل فعله. If you put a full stop on the bal, it means فعله, the big one did it. فعله كبيرهم. Now, let's continue.
And then sorry, the other thing is this, which I don't want to go too deep into this, but this is like a modeling also of how to work with disbelief. So we have a couple of different examples with this. We have the example of ilm al-kalam, and ilm al-kalam as a science, mostly only working with rational arguments that are very limited to a certain system. And then you have the Risale-i Nur. Risale-i Nur focusing on the idea of multiple means or points of entry to dismantle disbelief. So to get the heart involved, to get the thinking involved, to get the emotions involved, imagination involved, and we see that this exists in the Quran to a certain extent. You know,
Yeah, Ibrahim alayhi salam, like you're saying, he employs many different strategies. Once he says, "Look to the stars." Another time he breaks the idols. Another time with his father, he's engaging in dialectical conversation. You're right. He applies all the prophets, but you see it clearly with Ibrahim alayhi salam's many different strategies. Abraham prevails. We ordered, "O fire, be cool and safe for Abraham." They had sought to harm him, but we made them the worst losers. Then we delivered him along with Lot to the land we had showered with blessings for all people. And we blessed him with Isaac as a son and Jacob as a grandson, as an additional favor, making all of them righteous. We also made them leaders, guiding by our command, and inspired them to do good deeds, establish prayer, and pay alms tax, and they were devoted to our worship. Prophet Lot. And to Lot we gave wisdom and knowledge and delivered him from the society engrossed in shameful practices. They were certainly an evil, rebellious people. And we admitted him into our mercy, for he was truly one of the righteous. Prophet Noah. And remember when Noah had cried out to us earlier? So we responded to him and delivered him and his family from the great distress. And we made him prevailed over those who had rejected our signs. They were truly an evil people, so we drowned them all. وَنَصَرْنَاهُ مِنَ الْقَوْمِ. He says in Surah Qamar, Rabbi inna maghlubun fantasir. Allah, I'm overtaken, so help. He, the Nasr word is used in response to that dua. Allahu Alam. Prophet David and Solomon. And remember when David and Solomon passed judgment regarding the crops ruined at night by someone's sheep, and we were witness to their judgments. We guided young Solomon to a fairer settlement and granted each of them wisdom and knowledge. We subjected the mountains as well as the birds to him, our praises along with David. It is we who did it all. 6:30 man, just a quick footnote. A man's flock of sheep strayed into another man's vineyard, eating and destroying all his produce. When the two men came to David for judgment, he ruled that the shepherd must give his animals to the vineyard owner uh, in compensation for the damage. On their way out, the two men met young Solomon, and the shepherd complained to him. Solomon discussed the case with his father and suggested that the sheep should be kept with the man who lost his produce so he may benefit from their milk and wool, while the shepherd worked on the farm to restore it to its original state. Eventually, the farmer would take back his farm in perfect condition and the sheep would be returned to the shepherd. David was impressed by his son's insight and approved his fair judgment immediately. We taught him the art of making body armor to protect you in battle. Will you then be grateful? And to Solomon we subjected the raging winds, blowing by his command to the land we had showered with blessings. It is we who know everything, and we subjected some jinn that dived for him and performed other duties. It is we who kept them in check. Prophet Ayub. And remember when Job cried to his Lord, I have been touched with adversity, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. So we answered his prayer and removed his adversity and gave him back his family, twice as many, as a mercy from us and a lesson for the devoted worshippers. This is the story where he gets sick and have said that he only made this dua once the sickness reached his heart and his tongue, the place where he does zikr and worship. So he didn't want that to be affected, and he made this dua, and Allah responded. More prophets, and remember Ishmael, Enoch, and Zulkifl.
There's another take here. The reason he made the dua is that people said that he must have sinned a lot if such calamities have reached him, and then he
Mm.
makes the dua. So yeah, it's interesting. That's another. I guess it's a bit of a discussion to have, but yeah, we'll leave it there perhaps.
I think from a personal level, this dua is important just to make for ourselves from the angle of when hardship and everything seems to be closing in on us. There's it's a very powerful dua.
Yeah, he says, "An anni masani durru," like a bit of harm has touched me. The narrations say that there's a lot of harm, but it sort of shows the adab of the Prophet and making dua. He's not complaining to Allah. He's
Yes,
just what one scholar says, ardul hal. He's just presenting his state. This is not a complaint, but in a very polite way. But then ultimately asking Allah's rahmah. Um, Naam. They were all steadfast. We admitted them to our mercy, for they were truly of the righteous. Prophet Jonah. And remember when the man of the whale stormed off from his city in a rage, thinking we would not restrain him. This is 87. When he left his people, wroth at their rank refusal, sure that we would not bear down on him for it. Okay. Then in the veils of darkness, he cried out, "There is no God worthy of worship except you. Glory be to you. I have certainly done wrong." So we answered his prayer and rescued him from anguish, and we do save the true believers. Here he says, or
it's another powerful.
thinking we will let him get away with it. Jonah had been met with denial for many years. When he sensed the coming of Allah's torment, he abandoned his city without Allah's permission. Eventually, his people repented before the coming of the torment, and Allah accepted their repentance, whereas Jonah ended up in the belly of the whale. Prophet Zechariah. And remember when Zechariah cried out to his Lord, "My Lord, do not leave me childless, though you are the best of successors." So we answered his prayer, granted him Yahya, John, and made his wife fertile. Indeed, they used to race in doing good and call upon us with hope and fear, totally humbling themselves before us. Prophet Jesus and his mother, and remember the one who guarded her chastity? So we breathed it into her through our angel, Gabriel, making her and her son a sign for all peoples. One way, O prophets, indeed this religion of yours is only one, and I am your Lord, so worship me alone. Yet the people have divided it into sects, but to us they will all return. So whoever does good and is a believer will never be denied the reward for their striving, for we are recording it all. The people of hell, it is impossible for a society which we have destroyed to ever rise again. Until after Gog and Magog have broken loose from the barrier, swarming down from every hill, ushering in the true promise. Then behold, the disbelievers will stare in horror, crying, "Oh, woe to us! We have truly been heedless of this. In fact, we have been wrongdoers. Certainly, you disbelievers and whatever you worship instead of Allah will be the fuel of hell. You're all bound to enter it. Had those idols been true gods, they would not have entered it, and they will be there forever. In it they will groan, and they will not be able to hear.
And it is deep because here it says, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. So the idea here is that there is like some sort of rule for for the rise and fall of a community. The term "qaria" is used. It's like today we use it like we talk about the global village, but this is, I mean, I think it's something Imam Ibn Khaldun focused on this concept heavily from the Quran and tried to figure out what were the principles that were, what are the principles that contribute to the revival of a civilization, and what are the principles that contribute to its decline. But here is almost like once there's a point there's a point of no return for that some communities reach, and we have to really reflect that civilizations rise and fall. But what we're involved or what we're part of is an ummah that spans across centuries. And as civilizations rise and fall, what we're looking to maintain is the ummah, even though the civilization can decline. Civilization involves the cultural realities. Yeah, because that was a big question. Up to now, it's still a big question that plagues the Muslims. With the fall of the Khilafah, how do we orient ourselves? And at the minimum, the Quran is showing us, okay, the civilization was given to Dawood and it was given to Suleiman. That can be part of the riches of the believers, but maintaining the relationship with Allah wa ta'ala regardless is something that's constant that we see in these models. And in some cases, because we know that Iraq has always been a place of civilization. Ibrahim left the land, Ibrahim left that land and that community and went to a more simple community, for the sake of Iman.
Now, this bit mentions, whatever you worship besides Allah, it's the wood of the hellfire, and those things will enter the fire. And this next verse comes when the Quraysh were mocking the Prophet. They said, then what about the case of Jesus, alayhi salam? Is he also going to be in hellfire because they worship him? So the people of paradise, surely those for whom we have destined the finest reward will be kept far away from hell. And if I'm not mistaken, the tafsir said this is referring to Isa alayhi salam. Not even hearing the slightest hissing from it. And they will delight forever in what their souls desire. The supreme horror of that day will not disturb them, and the angels will greet them, saying, this is your day which you have been promised. On that day we will roll up the heavens like a scroll of writings. Just as we produced the first creation, so shall we reproduce it. This is a promise binding on us. We truly uphold our promises. Surely following the heavenly record, we decreed in the scriptures, my righteous servants shall inherit the land. Other translations will read it like this. Where is it? No, 105. Verily did we inscribe in the Psalms, because it says in the Zabur, after we had sent the revealed reminders, that my righteous servants shall inherit the entire earth. Sheikh Yusuf, a very similar verse and similar translation still exists in the Psalms, right? Surely the righteous shall inherit.
The meek, usually they translate it as the meek shall inherit the earth. Can't remember if it's in the Psalms though.
Okay.
But the meek shall inherit the earth it's
Yeah. There's a lot of discussion about what this
is in the gospel.
Yeah.
In the gospel, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. I mean, it's possible to be in other places in the Bible, but it's what were you saying?
Um, no, just a bit. Surely following the heavenly record. There's a lot of discussion, but I think we're a bit short in time. وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْر. What is the dhikr? Some said it's the Quran, some said it's the Lawhi Mahfuz zikr. Dr. Mustafa Khattab has chosen the heavenly record. That sort of.
I find it interesting that that ayah about inheritance was mentioned after all of those examples that were given. You know,
Yeah,
it ties the beginning back to the end of the surah.
yeah, true. Advice for the Prophet. Surely this Quran is sufficient as a reminder for those devoted to worship. We have sent you, O Prophet, only as a mercy for the whole world. This is the famous verse. Rahmatan lil alameen.
Mm.
We have sent you a prophet only as a mercy for the whole world. Say, what has been revealed to me is this: your God is only one God. Will you then submit? If they turn away, then say, I have warned you all equally. I do not know if what you are threatened with is near or far. Allah surely knows what you say openly and whatever you hide. I do not know if this delay is possibly a test for you and an enjoyment for a while. In the end, the Prophet said, my Lord, judge between us in truth, and our Lord is the most compassionate, whose help is sought against what you claim. The pilgrimage. Ustaz Ahmed, we started a bit late. We got delayed. But I suggest we read about 10 minutes or so. Otherwise, we're falling more and more behind each juz.
Yeah, maybe we haven't heard from Sheikh Yusuf. Sheikh Yusuf, how's your voice? Have you recovered?
Alhamdulillah, I'm a lot better than where I was at to be.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay, so I can read inshallah. Just let me know where to stop. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This Medinan surah takes its name from the passage that talks about pilgrimage rituals in ayat 25 to 37, along with condemnations to the pagans for hindering the believers from reaching the sacred house of Mecca. After 15 years of persecution, here the believers received the permission to fight back in self-defense. That's ayat 39. Idolatry is condemned, or idol worship is condemned, and the idols are rejected as pathetic, incapable of even creating a fly. In conclusion, the believers are told that they can achieve success through prayer and good deeds, a theme which extends to the beginning of the next surah. In the name of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the horror of judgment day. O humanity, fear your Lord, for the violent quaking at the hour is surely a dreadful thing. The day you see it, even a nursing mother will abandon what she is nursing, and every pregnant woman. I'm sorry. The day you see it, every nursing mother will abandon what she is nursing, and every pregnant woman will deliver her burden prematurely. And you will see people as if they were drunk, though they will not be drunk. But the torment of Allah is terribly severe, denying Allah's might. Still, there are some who dispute about Allah without knowledge and follow every rebellious devil. It has been decreed for such devils that whoever takes them as a guide will be misguided and led by them into the torment of the blaze. Allah's power to create. O humanity, if you are in doubt about the resurrection, then know that we did create you from dust, then from a sperm drop, then developed you into a clinging clot of blood, then a lump of flesh, fully formed or unformed, in order to demonstrate our power to you. Then we settle whatever embryo we will in the womb for an appointed term, then bring you forth as infants, so that you may reach your prime. Some of you may die young, while others are left to reach the most feeble stage of life, so that they may know nothing after having known much. And you see the earth lifeless, but as soon as we send down rain upon it, it begins to stir to life and swell, producing every type of pleasant plant. That is because Allah alone is the truth. He alone gives life to the dead, and He alone is most capable of everything. And certainly the hour and certainly the hour is coming. There's no doubt about it, and Allah will surely resurrect those in the graves. Punishment of the wicked. Still are
It's very
those
very
still
clear the Quran is giving logical and rational arguments for the hereafter. Proofs.
Yeah. It,
yeah,
it,
is
it,
giving. Go ahead, Ustad
no,
Alam.
please, Imam Yusuf. I was going to touch on something else. So.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Touch on it.
No, no, you
No,
finish and then I'll come back to it, inshallah.
please.
Okay, I was going to say, like, I mean, this verse is one of those, again, scientific verses which talks about the creation of the embryo in the womb. But it's amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just in one ayah just covers the whole lifespan of a human being and then gives a parable all of a sudden. It doesn't talk about the resurrection yet, but it gives a parable to make us think and then goes to talk about the resurrection. So I found it really nice.
Yeah, and the point that I want to share complements that, and that's that the Quran is interlocking what we see with the truth of revelation, so that we don't separate between them, so that they eventually support one another. So we have proofs from life itself that we live and we see and we experience through our senses, and then we have proof through the revelation that we reflect on and we meditate on and was revealed to us. The modern world, we have to be very conscious, has separated that. So sometimes there's something in us, that we have to say, like, we're at a point where science is the truth. You know what I'm saying? Or we're at a point where what we see is what we believe. That's how societies. But here the Quran is saying no, like all of these things are interlocked with one another. Don't separate them, but learn how each has its place and its role in supporting what life is all about, which is that Allah is one and that there is a hereafter that's coming. You're responsible for your deeds on the earth. Those three truths, Sheikh Rashid Rida was saying, they're the most prominent in the Quran, so to speak. That's the aims of the Quran.
Sheikh
Punishment
Yusuf,
of the wicked. Yes.
last year we had the privilege of going through this surah, if you remember, page by page,
Mm-hmm.
during the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. We did a page every day. Yeah.
It reads like a completely new surah, though, to be honest with you. Punishment of the wicked. Still, there are some who dispute about Allah without knowledge, guidance, or an enlightening scripture, turning away in pride to lead others astray from Allah's way. They will suffer disgrace in this world and on the day of judgment. We will make them taste the torment of burning. They will be told, this is the reward for what your hands have done, and Allah is never unjust to His creation. Half-hearted worship. And there are some who worship Allah on the verge of faith. If they are blessed with something good, they are content with it. But if they are afflicted with a trial, they relapse into disbelief, losing this world and the hereafter. That is truly the clearest loss. They call besides Allah what can neither harm nor benefit them. That is truly the farthest one can stray. They invoke those who worship leads to harm, not benefit. What an evil patron and what an evil associate. Reward of true believers. Indeed, Allah will.
So just
Yes.
on that, like it says that it's talking about the Bedouins. I guess people might be thinking, like, who are these people who would come and embrace Islam if there was more material gain that they would have following Islam? They would continue, but if they started having afflictions, etc., then they would lapse. Yeah. I guess talking about the worship, those who worship Allah on the verge of faith, verse number 11.
Yeah. Ala harfin. Always expecting something. If it's good in it, they'll do it.
Material gain, material benefit.
material gain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, to be honest with you, though, that pretty much characterizes the contemporary age. The tarbiyah that we have to, to pause for a second. Bani Israel, before they were to enter the promised land, they had to go through a process of purification so they can be removed from the ways of disbelief. And so the same thing happens, the same thing happened. The Quran came gradually and took people out of what was termed Jahiliyyah, or the time prior to the revelation of the Quran in the Hijaz, in the area of Mecca, Medina, and so on and so forth. There was a process of taking people out of disbelief and bringing them into belief. So the reality of the age that we live in has a certain type of education, and that education is not only just teachings, is also a formation of ourselves. The way that we deal with desire, the way that we respond to life is embedded in us. Sometimes those instinctual responses are not really our instinctual responses. We've been trained to that. So we've been trained, like, we've been trained. We see a beautiful picture, or even a sexual picture is associated with a car or is associated with success. So then we associate the idea of success with these realities, and people are growing up in that reality. So in today's time, it's like if people don't feel something, they're not necessarily going to be committed to it, because we're being trained to, especially with social media, everything has to be, pleasure, pleasure, fun, 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 pleasure, pleasure, fun, fun, pleasure, pleasure, fun, fun. So those things that don't give us that type of experience, we're putting them to the side. I'm saying that to say that from the angle of purification of the self and liberating ourselves, we have to ask ourselves, are we only good with Allah if everything is going good materially? But then if things, if hardship comes in our lives, then we're questioning Islam, we're questioning Allah, we're like, we're doubting, because that's a personality. There's another type of personality that when things are bad, they cry to Allah. We saw that personality before. Things are bad, they cry to Allah, they're on their best, but then when things get materially good for them, then they forget Allah. But here the idea is that when trial afflicts, it's not just the deprivation. It could be not just deprivation of material wealth, but it could be deprivation of other things. That they relapse into disbelief. That's why right now we're seeing a massive, massive, massive influx of converts. It's an unbelievable influx of people coming to Islam right now. And there's been questioning, like, did you guys read about, did you guys read about Islam? Did you read the Quran? No, but they're looking at the faith of the Palestinians, and they're seeing that resilience and commitment, and they're saying, well, if those people can have faith, you know what I'm saying? And under those circumstances, they're not breaking, then this has to be the truth. And that's some of what's being said. But we have to pay attention to that, because and there are some who worship Allah on the verge of faith. May Allah exclude us from being among those. If they are blessed with something good, they're content with it. But if they are afflicted with a trial, they relapse into disbelief. And we've seen Ayub alayhi salatu wasalam. He was tested to the limit on every front. And the Anbiya were giving examples of dealing with this here reality. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, no matter what came, good or bad, he stayed the same. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the same thing. As a matter of fact, he questioned himself if he felt that he did something wrong. So that's an important part of navigating faith, right? If not, I think we're going to find ourselves in a really bad place, because definitely life puts a lot of pressure on us. And if we're thinking that this is going to be on our terms, meaning life is going to be on our terms only, on the terms of our desire, our way of thinking, that we're in a shock. We're going to be in a definite shock. And we have to realize capitalism does make it like that. Be successful. You're at the top of the world when you have everything in place. But then you see people have everything in place, and then they lose it, and immediately they're ready to commit suicide or whatever. So we have to understand the material world is there to service us in our iman, right? And our iman is not dependent upon the rise and fall of our stations and our situations. It should be constant because all of those things are in flux on a regular basis. Or else, we just end up in a really bad place of mental health or disbelief and so on and so forth. And I think that's something that we're not talking about enough. How is it that the faith should be dealt with and life changes, right? And so with that idea in mind, let's read. And there are some who worship Allah on the verge of faith. If they are blessed with something good, they are content with it. But if they are afflicted with a trial, they relapse into disbelief, losing this world and the hereafter. That is truly the clearest loss. They call beside Allah what can neither harm nor benefit them. That is truly the farthest one can stray. They invoke those who worship leads to harm, not benefit. What an evil patron and what an evil associate.
Maybe we finish the page, Sheikh Yusuf, and then we.
Yeah.
It should probably read. He calls out to those who harm, to those whose harm is sure than their benefit, because there's an English issue here. So the page ends where, indeed, Allah will admit those who believe and do good into gardens under which rivers flow. Surely Allah does what He wills.
And one more verse.
Whoever thinks that Allah will not help his prophet in this world and the hereafter, let them stretch out a rope to the ceiling and strangle themselves. Then let them see if this plan will do away with the cause of their rage. You have to. You can't just leave us hanging on that one.
We'll let our audience hanging so that they'll come back, inshallah, Sheikh Yusuf.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
We
Thank you.
just would start 15 minutes later from our normal standard time, 6 a.m. Sydney, just due to Fajr timings from tomorrow onwards, inshallah.
So what time is that? So we 3:15?
3:15 for the East Coast, yeah.
Okay. All right. Inshallah.
All right.
Definitely.
Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.